Welcome to Conversations with K and J. We're your hosts, Kayla and Janae.
In here, we talk about love, life,
and lessons learned. Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Daily Doses of Conversations with Kayla
and Janae.
And today's daily dose is the beauty of allowing. Even though we know love cannot be forced, it is still something we subconsciously try to do. We need to learn the beauty and necessity of simply allowing, rather than changing to be the person we think another wants us to become. We should attract others by being ourselves. When we allow ourselves to be who we really are, that is the most seductive trait of all. Flowers do not go out searching for bees. Instead, they blossom just as they are, and the bee comes willingly to land on its petals. It is the same with our hearts. Be yourself and allow love to find you. What do you think about that?
I think that was pretty self-explanatory. I think if you be yourself throughout your day, you get what you deserve, right?
Yeah. And I think you will end up attracting more in the end, just like the example of the flower.
Mm-hmm.
That flower that is blossoming and blooming is probably attracting all the bees in the hive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you will genuinely attract what is for you by being you, and it will put you in a more comfortable place within yourself and within life to give you the freedom of knowing what is best for yourself and how that will bring you closer to your evolution and fulfillment that you're seeking. I think we have all lived a phase of life of trying to be and do as others would have liked us, and we still lack that sense of peace or happiness that we have known we deserve within.
Right. I think you unconsciously sometimes do things to please other people because of their title or who they are or what you're just used to doing, what you grew up on. And how you've always just treated them. It's sometimes hard to set those boundaries of telling people no when you genuinely do things for them that you don't realize, like, I don't have to. I do it because they like it, not because I do.
Right. And I think that can even stem outside of our personal relationships. It could even go into your job, into meeting strangers. I think that I've realized over the years, I've even had a hard time remaining authentic in moments of being around certain types of people, whether I knew them or not, because I didn't want to be seen in certain lights or come off a certain way without people even getting to know who I am within, right? I feel like especially being a spiritual person that does tarot readings, the first thing was not wanting to present myself as a tarot reader so people don't just put me into a box automatically and write me off or think that I'm doing things that are just weird to some people or uncomfortable. But I've definitely gotten into a more comfortable place with myself of realizing that the people who find value in me will take the time to understand me and get to know me and see what I'm about before just caging me into a box. And I think holding that perspective has set me free in a lot of ways of just being more carefree from day to day and trusting that who's for me will be for me and who's not, they won't.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I wish I could be the person to other people that, how you say things in your head that you wish you could say out loud, but you just don't because you feel like it will hurt that person's feelings or What
do you think I'm that person?
That you say things that you think? I think with me, you do. I think sometimes, everybody catches their words or think about what they are about to say before they say it.
Yeah.
And that can lead into you not being authentic in that moment.
Yeah. But I think that like, since us being together, you've definitely taught me a lesson of being mindful of the things that I do say.
Right.
Because sometimes I do just talk off of the top of my head without considering how other people may feel. Even though my intention is not to hurt someone's feelings, I realize that some of the thoughts that I do have in my perceptions are a little emotionless or a little insensitive.
Yeah, everybody got some wicked thoughts. I'm just saying, in moments when somebody, like at work, and they ask you to do something and you know you about to leave, and instead of you saying, like, in your head, you be like, no, girl, I'm about to bounce up out of here. Like, I ain't got time for that. People will say, yeah, okay, I got a little bit of time left. Like, no, I only got 5 minutes before I clock out of here and I'm ready to go.
Right.
You know, so why can't we just say that? And it's the way of saying it. But if you thought, like, no, girl, I got 5 minutes before I get out of here, why can't we just say?
Because I think a lot of people struggle with the ideal of having to be the bad person, quote unquote, in that moment.
Well, in the workplace, you always come in, you put on that workplace person, like that workplace mask. And once you put on that mask, everybody takes you that way. That's what they expect of you, right? So it's kind of taking off that mask and be like, look, I'm past the interview phase. I'm past the 1 year phase. Like, if I want to say no to you, I'm going to say no.
Yeah. I think I've gotten into a headspace of if it's fake and phony and I know I can't keep it up over time, like, I'm just going to give it to you authentically from the jump every moment that I can. It makes me think about, you know, when my parents used to tell me, like, make sure you straighten your hair on your work interview because they're not going to like your curly hair. And I'm just like, well, no, because my hair is going to be curly every day at work.
Right.
So you better like it now or just don't hire me.
Right. And then one day you show up with curly hair. Everybody want to, like, you know, compliment it, but be surprised that, like, oh my God, I didn't know you had.
Yeah, and that's so surface level, but it's still an extension of myself. Like, I'm not going to keep sitting here and getting heat damage to appease to someone who may not even care in general, but I think it was still putting a perception on me that I needed to show up in a certain way in order to be perceived in a certain manner. And that even goes to how I talk or how I carried myself back in the day. And I know that I typically have a hard time, like, just being blunt in the sense of dealing with other people. Like, I can be blunt within myself and on camera and, like, in a room of my own, but it is challenging at times to stand on my ground and just be like, no. Because, again, I don't want to come off as, like, rude or selfish, but those moments, in these moments, obviously, energetically, are calling for us to not be afraid to turn away and stand firmly on the things that we believe, because we've given a lot of time and energy and effort to people and places and spaces that really have not shown us the value that we need in order to feel confident or motivated to continue growing or going in the direction that we set for ourselves.
Right. Instead of attracting the bees, we attracting flies. And, you know, you can only last so long dealing with flies when you need the bee to pollinate your flower, right? Like, for you to grow.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think even in relationships in the workplace, it's kind of just a natural thing to do, to put on this mask until you just can't anymore. Like, it only lasts for so long of you not being your true self.
Right. So this is just authentically going with the flow of who you are, and knowing that by you standing in that truth and that confidence, it will show you who and what is for you and who and what is not. And anything that is asking you to compromise parts of yourself that are, like, really important to you, that make you you, is just not for you at the end of the day. And there's someone for everyone. There's something for everyone. And that's why you don't need to conform, because no, the crowded people in the environment that you grew up in and that you've been surrounded by may not be supportive of who you are changing or evolving into, but that doesn't mean that moving forward in that truth, you won't attract your tribe per se, or the people that will contribute to your growth and evolution. So this goes into the 8 of Cups type of energy, where Cups energy is going to be your emotions. So none of this is to be said as if it's going to be a walk in the park or a piece of cake, because you are going to feel the emotional effects of having to turn away from things and people that you were once willing to give your all for, that you were once willing to compromise and bend backwards for. But I think that the change comes when you realize that those people and things are not willing to budge for you. You know? So that's what I'm saying. When you came into my life and helped me to realize, like, to be more mindful of the things that I say and how they can affect someone emotionally, I definitely keep that in mind. But to the people that have showed me that they are like senseless and they don't, like, they wouldn't care about the things that they say or do to me, again, I'm not going to be an eye for an eye, but I'm definitely not going to hold back. I will definitely let you know the truth of how you are making me feel, you know. And then there are people like you and, you know, people that do value me and show me the same in return, of like being mindful of the things that I tell you, of how things affect my feelings and how I'm feeling, or if I need time and space for myself, like, you don't get upset about that. You don't feel a certain way. You don't take it personal. And I think that energetically, we have been dealing with people who have been trying to make us feel bad for choosing ourselves or taking those moments of needing to focus on ourselves and our foundation, because eventually that leads to a burnout.
Right.
Or being passive aggressive in a way that makes you lash out in ways that are just genuinely not who you are or who you want to be.
Right. Right. And that ends up those people telling you that you've changed, but I mean, it's you showing who you truly are. You haven't changed in that moment. I just said no to you in that moment.
Right. And that's something you will have to come to terms with, because if you continue compromising parts of yourself and your identity for the sake of other people, you will eventually hit the wall and realize that there has not been any growth. And then you start blaming yourself.
Right.
And then you start wondering, like, well, what am I still not doing? Why am I not good enough? And it's not that you're not good enough. It's that there needs to be firm boundaries set so that you can make the time and space for yourself, or you're going to feel burnt out. You're giving more than you are receiving in return.
I think you feel burnt out or feel like you don't know yourself at all.
Or maybe that nobody cares.
Right.
You know, I think that's what we all run into at some point, just feeling like I'm doing all of this and I'm listening and I'm taking in and I'm being considerate of you. And in return, like, no one's even asking how I'm doing or how I'm feeling or what's going on with me. And that kind of goes into the notion of teaching people how to treat you and understanding that that will change over time. And that's what I mean. I think you and I have both grown since we have first met, and we have different perspectives, but not in like ways that completely separate us, but in ways that we've had to sit down and reanalyze and realize that, you know, we are feeling different, we are thinking different, and that's just a simple conversation and communication that happens, right? So if I'm feeling overwhelmed, it's just letting you know, like, I may just need some space right now. It's like I came to you the other day feeling like I couldn't truly feel my emotions because I didn't want, you know, anyone to take it personal when it's really me just trying to process. And again, like, you give me the space and the time in order to say that and also feel whatever I'm feeling. And that was healing for me, because I grew up in a, you know, foundation that even if I did communicate that I was going through something, I wasn't allowed that space. Like, I always had to get over it or, you know, like, not be able to focus on myself because I had to focus on helping someone else.
Right.
And so everything is not going to end in you having to walk away, but it will end in the sense of you having to walk away from this emotional cycle that you've been giving into.
Right.
And that leads into this King of Pentacles type of energy where when we look at the King of Pentacles, I like to look at him as like a business owner. And, you know, like if you own a business and you have employees, of course you want to take heed to their emotions and the things that they are going through. But at some point you have to separate business from personal life. Does that make sense? So at some point a line has to be drawn. I remember working in HR at the hotel one time, and I was hiring people because I felt sorry about their situation in life, and I really felt like they needed a job, and then they would get hired and then they would come in slacking.
Right.
You know, and it's like, it's being considerate, but it's also being mindful of your foundation and what you're building. And at the end of the day, like, I understand that people have hardships and they're going through things, but then you have to realize if those people are choosing those hardships based off of their choices and actions, or if they are just falling like on hard times. So I think it's important to know that you can be there for a person and you can support them, but at some point, if it starts to bring you down within it, you have to draw a line so that you can continue taking care of yourself and nurturing your emotions.
Yep.
I used to get sad when I couldn't help people out of their situations, and I kept wondering, like, well, what more can I do? How more can I show up for this person and support them and try to help them out of situations without taking a moment to realize that, again, some people are choosing that. Some people want to be stuck in those situations, or they don't want to see themselves enough to make changes. And it can be out of fear of failure or scarcity, but...
Well, maybe you feel like so emotional towards that person, or feel sorry in a way because you've seen your old self in that person, and you wanted that. Maybe you wanted somebody to do that for you.
Right, but
in that moment, you got to realize that I'm not that person anymore. Like, when you let things go, you then realize you want to attract people who are like you in that moment, not the old you.
Right. Well, yeah, I think that is why, you know, we always resonate with people who are in those like state of minds or those situations. But that's what I was saying. Like, at some point, I had to step back and realize, like, well, after all these situations and I would have changed.
Right.
I would have stopped choosing these
Right.
people in these situations. Like, I would have learned from this lesson by now. And so that's what I'm saying. It's fine to be there for a person initially, but once you start to see that they're in a loop that they're not trying to get out of, you have to remove yourself from it before you get stuck into that loop yourself. And so, again, it's just taking on that boss mentality of being mindful and understanding what people go through, but also making sure that you are not destructing what you've built in your foundation in the process of helping another.
Yep.
Right? Because, again, you and I are people who want to do better, who heal, who are consistently evolving in the best ways that we know how. We're not just people sitting here playing victim and wanting people to give us the attention or to just be a venting source. We actually make changes after a while.
Yeah, I mean, we're people that's out here trying to find ourselves. Like, we still don't know our true selves, and that's what this journey should be about. Yourself and finding out who you are and who your people are, and whoever comes along the journey will come, but those who can't because they have to find their own way as well.
Right. And again, it's not to sit up here and make it seem like it's a walk in the park, or it's going to be something easy to turn away from. This may be a situation that is like the hardest thing that you've ever had to do.
Yeah.
But again, it's also about keeping your focus on what you're building and knowing that anything that God takes away from you will be replaced times 2, right? And so looking at this Eight of Cups energy, it is combined with the Three of Pentacles. And this is about building. This is about partnerships. So if you have been in a place or space where you've been doing things alone, this is pretty much telling you that you have done right by choosing yourself. And it's not always leaving people with the mindset of like it will never ever be or could never ever be. You just have to realize that sometimes we enable people and they have to learn how to stand on their own. And if they learn how to stand and move forward, they could be right there with you at some point. But to think that you can continue dragging someone on until they get it will only burden you and hold you back at the end of the day.
Right. It's like us saying, are we going to jump in the pool together and only one of us jump,
Yeah.
It shows then you're just going to have to go underwater by yourself.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to take that risk, and that person will eventually jump in or they may never jump in.
Right. But don't you jump in the water holding on to somebody that you know can't swim.
Right.
Then you just going to end up doing, again, all the work and eventually tire yourself out. And we all can see where that leads to, So
Yeah, you'll drown.
you'll drown. And it's
You'll feel like you're drowning.
keeping in mind that you have your own battles, you have your own struggles, you have your own emotional needs. And it makes me think of you. I feel like you are not a person to really put your emotions or the things that you're struggling with on other people, because you're like, I can handle mine, know. So I'd rather have space for someone who I know needs the support. But that is still knowing that it's okay to let other people support you, because I'm that same way. Like,
Right.
I feel like I got this. Like, I can get through it. I can put on my big girl panties and keep them moving. But that has led me to realize that I end up being burnt out.
Yeah.
At the end of
I
the
think
day.
you'll eventually do, but I think when you are going through the emotions, you should allow yourself to feel it and feel it alone, because it cuts out all the outside noise and you only left with yourself to deal with it. And, when you're a person who always puts your emotions out for somebody else, you're looking for somebody to give you the answer. Right? You end up being that person that vents about everything, and you never took the time to sit in the dark room and cry alone, so that you can really genuinely feel how you feel about that situation, how you feel about that person, if you should let them go or you shouldn't. You're not looking for outside noise to tell you what it is. You listening to your intuition.
Yeah. And
So
you definitely need that.
Yeah, a lot of times I deal with my emotions on my own, but I also have to learn that when I've heard it on my own, I need the support to really go through it. Because sometimes you'll get stuck being in that room crying for so long.
Yeah.
And it kind of puts you in an even more lost space.
Right. But I think that beautifully ties back into the message of the beauty of allowing. You have to allow yourself to go through all of the emotions, to think all of the thoughts and feel all of the feels. And even, again, realize that, again, it's going to suck walking away and you're going to feel the emotional effects of it, but it's going to be temporary versus you choosing to stay in that energy consistently for the sake of other people and things. And so again, with this Three of Pentacles energy, this is about setting yourself free emotionally so that you can create newness, so that you can make space for more. And by you moving through that and processing your emotions and finding a creative outlet per se, this will help you to release this jail cell that you've been in mentally. I think it's easy to beat yourself up when you are choosing what's best for you, especially if that's something you're not used to doing. But that's where you have to trust God and trust the process, that life will be a reflection of things that show you choosing yourself is always going to be what's best.
Right, the right thing.
Yeah.
The right thing to do. Don't allow people to make you feel ashamed for choosing you and doing what's best for you.
Yeah. Because even if a person doesn't understand it, if they really value you, they will trust that you know what's best for you.
Right. They would believe in it too.
Yeah. So that's the daily dose for today, y'all. We flowed and we glowed through this session, but I hope that it has resonated and has helped you in one way or another to free yourself from mental restriction and feeling low in moments where you should feel very proud of yourself, because that is something that a lot of people cannot do for whatever reason. It's not to knock people, but to show that you have the strength to choose you and stand on that will bring you greater blessings, peace, happiness, and fulfillment at the end of the day. And anyone that is for you should want that for you.
Right. So be yourself.